What's up, people? Joe Winko here, your favorite Hawaiian guy, and here's my next episode of Joe Winko Talk. This is going to be a very personal episode of Joe Winko Talk, as you can see from the title of this video. It's also going to be a really morbid and gloomy one because I am going to be mentioning and bringing up some tough times in my life and rough times in my life. But it definitely is going to be a very personal episode of Joe Winko Talk. This all actually happened quite a while ago, but the reason why I didn't talk about this till now is because I just didn't want to dive too deep into my personal life after a while because I used to do that a lot with my 2017 episodes of Joe Winko Talk. But after I moved down to Florida, I just didn't really want to dive into my personal life too much in my YouTube videos. But I wanted to be honest with everyone about myself and what's going on inside my autism mind and everything. Just to be honest with everyone and just so people are clear about everything. So that's why I'm discussing this right now. As you guys all know, I finally live down in the state of Florida, and I've been living here since October of 2017, because that's when my adoptive parents dropped me off here to live with their relatives. When I first moved down here, I needed to see a new psychiatrist for my medication management. I finally found one after a few months of living here. It took a long time for me to find one. And I see my psychiatrist every 3 to 4 months for my medication management because I'm on a medication that helps me with my concentration because I kind of been having problems with that all my life, really. This was around the early spring months of year 2018 when I first started seeing my new psychiatrist down here in Florida. The first meeting was kind of an intake meeting, and technically, what that means is it means when I go see my psychiatrist and I talk to her and I tell her about myself so she learns about my background and about why I need to take my medication and everything and what my goals are and everything. And during the intake, I was telling her about myself and telling her about my life and what brought me to Florida and everything and why I was down there and why I needed to see a psychiatrist for my medication management. And eventually, I started telling her about the conditions that I have. I told her that I have autism, and I also told her about the other conditions that I have, like ADHD, that affect my concentration. But then I also mentioned that a couple psychiatrists that I've seen in the past thought that I might have schizophrenia, but I never have been officially diagnosed with schizophrenia. The psychiatrists that I've seen in the past, back when I was living in Wisconsin, they only mentioned that I might have schizophrenia, but none of them ever really gone into that very much. And when I told her that, what I noticed right away is that her antennas went up, in lack of better terms, that she suddenly became really interested in that and was like, oh, really? Really? They said that you might have schizophrenia? And I was just like, well, they never really tried to diagnose me with it or anything, or never did any test on me to see if I have it, but they just mentioned it from time to time, really, because I told them about the sleep paralysis visions that I had of my biological father. And I'm going to be getting back to that pretty soon. But that was mainly the reason why they thought I had schizophrenia, and also because of the visions of the tornadoes. And I'm going to be getting to that very soon, too. And I actually did do an episode of Joe Winko Talk about this back in 2017 about how the psychiatrists that I've seen, how they mentioned that they thought I might have schizophrenia, but they never really tried diagnosing me with it or looking into it at all. It turns out that I really don't have it at all, because this psychiatrist officially confirmed to me that I really don't have schizophrenia. And I'm going to be explaining the reasons why she said that I don't. As I started having more sessions with the psychiatrist, she soon told me and confirmed to me that I absolutely do not have schizophrenia and that I do not fit the criteria of a person who does have schizophrenia. She confirmed that all to me. And she was honestly really angry that my psychiatrists that I seen in Wisconsin were even mentioning that to me at all, because she told me that schizophrenia is a very serious condition for psychiatrists to bring up and diagnose someone with. And she thought it was very unprofessional for them just to say that to me out loud and everything, and to convince me that I have it, because that's very unprofessional of them to do that, especially to someone who has autism and who takes things very literally. Because that's one thing about my autism, that I take things very literally and very seriously. I was really curious. I was wondering why she doesn't think I have schizophrenia at all. I never really knew 100% if I actually had it or not, and I was just curious about that because no psychiatrist ever tried to diagnose me with it or check to see if I had it or not until this current psychiatrist that I'm seeing in Florida. And during this one session, she basically explained it all to me, why I do not have schizophrenia, and she explained all the symptoms of it and everything. The first thing she did say, however, is that the symptoms of autism and schizophrenia from the outside, they do appear to be very similar. Because people with autism, they can't really socialize very well, so they appear to be socially withdrawn. And it's kind of the same for people with schizophrenia, because she said people with schizophrenia, they're very out there and everything, and they have different beliefs, and they have a completely different way of seeing the world compared to a person with an average mind. And that's somewhat the same thing as a person with autism. They have a completely different way of seeing the world. I understand that I have a completely different way of seeing the world compared to normal minded people. But she says that if you look deeper, there is quite a big difference, because people with schizophrenia are really out of touch with reality. But she says that that's not true for me, based on our meetings and everything. She says that I seem like I really am in touch with reality, because I also showed her my YouTube videos as well, and she says that I appear to seem very self-aware and very aware of myself and aware of my thoughts and everything. That's one thing she noticed when we were watching a couple clips from my YouTube videos together. The first reason that she told me about on why she doesn't think I have schizophrenia is one of the symptoms of schizophrenia is inappropriate mood reactions. She said that when she was glancing at some of my YouTube videos, she noticed that I talk about a lot of sad stuff in my YouTube videos. And not just sad stuff that happens to myself, but sad stuff that happens to other people. And she asked me, she said that she already knew the answer to this question, but she wanted to ask me this question again anyway so she could hear it from myself. She asked me, how do you feel when you read about all this stuff? How do you feel when you learned that this happened to this person, or that this person died, or that this person did this? How do you feel about that? Do you feel happy about it or anything? And I was just like, no, I don't feel happy when I hear that someone committed suicide or when I hear that someone's been murdered or anything. I honestly think it's really sad, and I do kind of have like a morbid curiosity to it, but I honestly think it's all very sad when I hear about someone who was murdered or someone who died of an illness or someone who committed suicide. That's why I go to visit their graves, and it's really just tributes to them so they're remembered and everything. That's a major reason why I do my episodes of Chilling Crimes, and why I do the videos of me visiting graves and everything. And she said that was the first sign that I don't have schizophrenia. Because she said that one major symptom of a person with schizophrenia is that a lot of times they have inappropriate reactions to stuff. Like they might laugh at something that's not funny at all, or they might get sad about something that's really not sad at all, or something that's happy. She said that that was one of the first signs that I don't have schizophrenia, because she said that I definitely do not have inappropriate reactions to things. She said that they make sense, my reactions to all this sad stuff I read about online. Yeah, I do have an interest in reading and learning about it, but she said that my reaction to it is not inappropriate at all. I literally do feel sorry for these people, and I really do feel sad for them. And I literally understand that the stuff that happened to these people who I read about online, and the stuff that happened to the people whose graves I visit, is actually really sad and really tragic. She said that that was the first sign that I do not have schizophrenia, but there's a lot more that we talked about. She said that another thing she picked up on is that I always mention my autism and my autism mind and everything. And she asked me, do you think that someone else is controlling your thoughts? Do you think that there's some entity or someone or something that's controlling your thoughts? And I answered her and I told her, uh, well, I do believe that my mind is wired differently and that it functions differently from other people because of my autism and everything, but I don't think my autism itself is controlling my mind. I don't think there's any entity or a person or something separate that's controlling my mind. I just think that's the way my mind works. I don't think there's anyone controlling my thoughts. And she also asked me, do I ever think my thoughts belong to someone else, or am I thinking someone else's thoughts, or do I think I'm able to read people's minds? And I told her, no, I don't think that. I don't think anyone else is controlling my thoughts, and I don't think I'm reading anyone's mind, and I don't think my thoughts belong to someone else. Like, all my thoughts are my own, but it's the way my brain is wired. That's why I think differently from other people and react to stuff from other people. It's not like I think someone's controlling my mind or anything. And she told me that another symptom of schizophrenia is people with schizophrenia often think that something or someone else is controlling their thoughts. That's what she told me. So she said that that was another sign that I do not have paranoid schizophrenia, because I'm able to understand that it's just that my mind is wired differently. It's not that I think something from the outside is controlling my thoughts, or that someone else is controlling my thoughts, because I never thought anything like that. But she said that that was another sign that I do not have schizophrenia. And I was honestly glad to hear that, and I was honestly glad that I don't think like that also, because that would honestly be really terrifying if you thought that someone else or something else was controlling your thoughts, really. I do believe that my mind is wired differently from other people, but I don't think someone else is controlling my thoughts, really, because I know how to control my mind and to control my thoughts, but I don't think anyone else is controlling my mind. That whole thing, and just imagining that, kind of freaks me out. Imagining someone else or something else controlling my thoughts. But I'm glad that I do not believe that's what's going on, because I definitely do not. Another one of my YouTube videos that we watched together was the one about the time when I almost ran away to Arkansas forever. And let me just summarize that really quick. I'll have the link to that specific video in the pinned comments. Back in summer of 2015, I had this job that my adoptive mother was making me keep, and I couldn't stand it at all. So I posted an ad online saying that I wanted to run away forever. And then there was this one guy who said that he was going to be coming through Wisconsin, and that he would pick me up and he would take me to Arkansas and he would drop me off in Arkansas. And then I believed that I was going to be walking the streets of Arkansas and wandering around aimlessly till I collapsed and died. But I didn't really care at all because I was at a really rough point in my life back then, back in summer of 2015. And in that video, I also explained that the lyrics and the song Cruel Summer by Bananarama always made me think of Arkansas and how I ran away to Arkansas, because the lyrics of that song, this is just an example, not the whole thing. The lyrics of that song say, "It's a cruel, cruel summer, leaving me here on my own." And that always made me think of how the stranger was going to drop me off and leave me for dead in Arkansas. And then the next verse of the chorus of that song was, "It's a cruel summer, leaving me here all alone. Now you're gone, you're not the only one." When I hear that song and when I hear that part of the song, "Now you're gone, you're not the only one," I always imagined that that meant that I died in Arkansas and that I wasn't the only one who died in Arkansas, because I read some other stories about people who had died in Arkansas and who went missing in Arkansas. So that's what the song always meant to me. And we discussed that a tad bit. But then we looked up that song and we read that it was a song by Bananarama, obviously. And we also read that it was released in year 1983. And she asked me, "Do you seriously believe that that song is truly about you running away to Arkansas and dying?" As in, does she really think that the people who wrote that song, did they really write it about that time when I almost ran away to Arkansas and died? Like, did they predict that that was going to happen, or did they predict that event was going to happen? And did they specifically write that song so I would find it and so I would know that it was about me running away to Arkansas and dying? And I was like, what? Absolutely not. No, I honestly just thought it was all just one weird coincidence, and that's just how my autism mind took it, and that's how my autism mind imagined it, and that's how I interpreted the lyrics, that to me it represented when I almost ran away to Arkansas forever. But I don't believe that's what the song is about. I thought it was just coincidence that it kind of paralleled my life story about how I almost ran away and passed away in Arkansas. And she said that that was another sign, because people with schizophrenia, they believe that certain stuff, like certain events, like ordinary events, have like a literal special meaning. Like, I'm spiritually connected to places, that's what I believe. Like, oh, this place means a lot to me. That's what I mean when I say I'm spiritually connected to a certain place. But a person with schizophrenia, they literally believe that that specific place exists just for them. That they're literally tied to that place for specific logical reasons. I don't really remember the exact word choice she used, but that's technically what she was telling me that a person with schizophrenia believes. Like my spiritual connection to Interstate 95. The reason why I felt that I was spiritually connected to I-95 is because I was born in 1995, and plus Interstate 95 runs along the East Coast. And I always love road trips and everything, and it's been my dream to road trip the entire length of I-95, and it also runs parallel to the Atlantic Ocean, and that's where my biological uncle's ashes were scattered. And that interstate has special meaning to me, honestly. But she was asking me, do I really believe that that interstate was built for me? Like, do I really believe that that's why the interstate exists, to spiritually connect me to the Atlantic Ocean where my biological uncle's ashes were scattered? And I told her, no, I don't think Interstate 95 exists just because of that. I just think it just so happens to be there, and it just so happens to be called I-95. They didn't name it I-95 so I'd be spiritually connected to it. It just so happens to be called I-95, and it just so happens that I was born in 1995, and it's a coincidence, really. She said that that was another sign that I do not have schizophrenia due to the fact that I'm aware of that. And I thought it was really interesting that she was bringing all this stuff up and analyzing my thoughts and analyzing the way I see the world and everything. I mean, don't get me wrong, I definitely do have a spiritual connection to I-95, but the reason why that spiritual connection exists in my mind is because I made all those connections to I-95. Because, I mean, I didn't scatter my uncle's ashes into the Atlantic Ocean. It just so happened that they were scattered there. But the reason why that spiritual connection between me and I-95 exists is because my autism mind, which belongs to me and isn't controlled by anyone else, created that connection. It might be a tad bit difficult to understand, but that's my best way to explain it. And that's how she explained it to me, really. And I understood exactly what she meant. And here's where things start getting a bit more strange. So, I also told her about what I believe will happen to me after I die and after I pass away, and what I believe in the afterlife and everything. I told her that I always imagined that after I die, that the spirit of King Neptune will arise from the ocean, from the Atlantic Ocean, and he'll come find my soul right after I die, and then he'll guide me out into the Atlantic Ocean to reunite me with the soul of my biological uncle, Romario, who passed away in 2012, and that his ashes are scattered out in the ocean, and his soul is out in the Atlantic Ocean, and after I die, King Neptune will come and reunite us together, and that we'll finally be together again, and that we'll go to heaven together. That's what I believe will happen to me after I die. And I even mentioned it in that episode of Joe Winko Talk that it does sound crazy, but it makes just as much sense as the stuff you see in religious books and everything about the afterlife and what people believe in the afterlife and the different beliefs that people have. And she asked me, am I really 100% sure that that will actually happen after I die? And I told her, no, I'm not 100% sure. I mean, it is what I believe in, but deep down inside, I'm not 100% sure of that. I mean, it could be anything, or nothing could happen at all after I die. And she said that the fact that I'm aware of that, and the fact that I'm aware of how strange that whole fantasy or explanation sounds of what will happen to me after I pass away, and the fact that how if I'm from the outside looking in and hearing all of that and thinking about all that, she said that the fact that I understand that that whole thing is quite obscure, she said that that's another sign that I do not have schizophrenia, because a person with schizophrenia would believe that 100% and have no doubt about that. And that's what she told me, and she said that was another sign that I do not have schizophrenia. And yet, there's still more. So, the psychiatrist who I've seen back in Wisconsin, the one I saw back in Wisconsin in 2017, she only mentioned schizophrenia to me once when I told her about the visions of the tornadoes I had. And to be completely honest, they were really just nightmares, because most of the nightmares and visions I had, they happened while I was asleep. There's only one time that they happened while I was awake, and that was when I went to Walmart back when I was living in Wisconsin. And I explained this to my new psychiatrist who I was seeing in Florida, that a psychic told me that I was going to be killed out in a forest in North Carolina by a violent tornado, and she described in detail how I was going to die in the tornado, and what she saw happening to me in the tornado and everything, and she said that that's how I was going to die. I did a whole episode of Joe Winko Talk about that. I will have that in the pinned comments too. And I also explained to my psychiatrist about the time when I went to Walmart, and it was when I was up, and it was after I was up all night for 2 nights in a row, so I hadn't slept in 48 hours. And when I had the vision of the tornado coming right for me as I was exiting Walmart, and when I freaked out and everything and screamed because I saw it coming, and then after that, it disappeared. There's a couple things that my psychiatrist pointed out about that. The first thing is, she asked me, did the visions of the tornadoes, did those start happening before or after you saw the psychic and after the psychic told you everything that was going to happen? And I told her that they all happened after the psychic told me about everything. And she said that that's what triggered all those thoughts, because she said that because of my autism, I have a very powerful imagination, a very vivid and very powerful imagination. And she said another thing that she concluded when she was looking through my videos on YouTube. She said that it's clear that I spend a lot of time by myself, because she said that I'm always alone in my YouTube videos, and she said that it's very clear that I don't really have any friends at all, that the only friends I have are people who live really far away who I talk to on my live streams and everything. And I was like, oh, yeah, you're spot on about that. And she said that the apartment that I was living in Wisconsin, she said that she could tell that I spent a lot of time there by myself because I made so many episodes of Joe Winko Talk while I was staying in that apartment. And I was like, well, yeah, that's where I spent like 100% of my, almost 100% of my time back in 2017, besides the time when the strangers took me on the road trips back then. Another really interesting thing that she brought up, she said when a person's alone for a long time and when they don't have people to interact with or anything to interact with, because I didn't have any pets either, she said that when you're alone for a long time, your mind looks for something to occupy itself with. Especially me, because of my autism, I have a very active mind. And she says when people are alone for a long time, they kind of draw into themselves and they draw into their own mind. And she said that after the psychic told me that, I probably kept thinking about it over and over again, and that it was in the back of my mind the whole entire time. And I told her, yeah, absolutely, it definitely was. And she said that that was the reason why I started having the nightmares and the visions of the tornadoes. She also mentioned that people with schizophrenia, they have visions, they have strange beliefs, they see things that do not make sense. It makes sense to them, but it doesn't make sense to people around them. And she says that my visions of the tornadoes, that they made perfect sense, and she understood exactly why I was having them, because that was a really sad and really stressful time in my life. I thought I was going to become homeless and I was going to be left in a forest in North Carolina for dead, and she was able to understand that I was really stressed out about that, even though I thought I wasn't that stressed out about that. She said that I was stressed out about that subconsciously, and she said that my subconscious mind was trying to show me that I really was stressed out about that, and that that was a very difficult time in my life. And she even explained that specific vision of when I went inside Walmart early that morning and I had the vision of the tornado coming right for me. She said that the reason why that happened was, first of all, I was awake for 48 hours. I was awake for 2 nights in a row and didn't get any sleep. Another thing is, autism goofs up my sleeping schedule and makes it difficult for me to fall asleep at night. And whenever I'm awake all night, I then try to stay awake all day to get my sleeping schedule on the right track. That's another free tip for you guys. She says that when you're awake that long, that also has a effect on your mind and everything. And another thing was, I also explained to her when I was inside the Walmart, it was really early in the morning, like 4 or 5 a.m. No one else was there. Like, there were people there, but I wasn't really aware of them because they were all at the registers and everything. And she said that I was alone when that vision happened, when I saw the tornado coming right for me. And another interesting thing she pointed out, that I explained that as soon as the people ran in and helped me, that I didn't see the tornado at all, and that's when it all stopped, as soon as I noticed that other people were around me. She said, has anything like that ever happened to me while I'm around other people? Like if I'm out in public or going to Walmart to pick up food, have I ever seen anything really strange? Like, have I ever had a vision of King Neptune or a tornado coming to kill me while I'm in a room full of people? And I told her, no, that never happened, really. And she said that that's another sign that I don't have schizophrenia, because if a schizophrenic person is suffering from hallucinations and visions, even if they're with someone, they're still going to suffer from the hallucinations and visions, really. So she said that that was another sign that I do not have schizophrenia. And then she also asked me, how often does stuff like that happen? How often, when you're alone, do you see weird stuff like that? A vision of King Neptune or a vision of a tornado coming to kill you? And I told her it hasn't happened the whole entire time I've been down here. Like, yeah, I might have thought of King Neptune because I was going through some really rough stuff earlier in my life in summer of 2018. That was a really rough time for me, and I was having dreams about King Neptune and everything, but never anything that extreme, honestly. And she said that that was another sign that I don't have schizophrenia, because I was going through a really rough time in my life, and that one vision that I saw the tornado coming to kill me at Walmart, that was really the only time I ever really had a vision while I'm standing up and awake and seeing things. And I also told her about the vision I had when I was living in the apartment in Wisconsin, because I did an episode of Joe Winko Talk about this a really long time ago, about my legend of King Neptune, that I always believed that King Neptune would arise from the sea and take me out to the Atlantic Ocean and reunite me with the soul of my biological uncle. And when I was alone in my apartment for a really long time, and that I walked out of my apartment and went to the park that I lived by, and that I went into the woods, and all of a sudden I saw a huge beach and an ocean there, and that I saw the figure of King Neptune coming out of the ocean, and that I saw him staring at me and everything. When I told her about that, she said that she 100% believes that I was dreaming, and that I never left my apartment at all, and that I wasn't hallucinating or anything like that. She said that she believes that I was asleep when that was all going on, and that I never was awake and seeing all that. And now since she said that, I honestly believe her. I really do think it was all a dream, even though it was extremely realistic and everything. But she said that at that time I was under a lot of stress because I didn't know what was going to happen in my life or anything. And back in 2017, that was really stressing me out. But she said the thing was that all suddenly subsided now that I'm living in Florida and now that I actually have a home. She said that if I really did have schizophrenia, that wouldn't have subsided unless I was taking some medication to help me with it. But I'm not taking any meds for schizophrenia, and I wasn't even asking for meds for schizophrenia, and no one ever even put me on meds for schizophrenia. I'm just taking some medication to help with my concentration. And she said that if the psychiatrist really believed that I had schizophrenia and was seriously suffering from that, they would have put me on medication for people with schizophrenia. And she was really angry that they were mentioning that. This current psychiatrist who I'm seeing in Florida right now, in my opinion, she's literally the best psychiatrist who I ever had. For her to actually pay attention to all this stuff that was going on. But another thing was, she was actually the first psychiatrist who I ever told about my YouTube videos or my YouTube channel, And she was one of the first psychiatrists who I ever showed my YouTube videos to. And I'm really glad I did, because that's the whole point of my YouTube videos, for people to learn about me and to learn what's going on inside my autism mind. And it actually did come to my advantage this time. And I'm really happy about that too. She also asked me, do I ever think that people are spying on me? Or do I ever think that people are following me or anything? Or do I ever think that people are planning on killing me or anything? And I was just like, no. And I even explained to her that most of the stuff about me flies right over a person's head. That's what I always think. I always think that no one listens to a single word that I say in my episodes of Joe Winko Talk and everything. No offense to people who actually do, because I'm pretty sure there are quite a few people who do listen to the stuff I talk about. Because currently, I have 11,000 subscribers on YouTube, but the reason why 90% of those people are subscribed is because they like the scary stuff I make with The Sims 2. That's why so many people subscribe to me, and that's how I got so popular on YouTube. I don't think anyone is ever interested in the stuff going on inside my autism mind, or the stuff that I explain in my YouTube videos. It's really sad, but it's kind of true. But don't get me wrong, I know that some people do listen, and I really do appreciate that, but it's just not clear, because even in the comments, people don't really go into depth about what I talk about in my YouTube videos or what I say in my YouTube videos. People don't say, oh, I listened to you when you said this, and I think this about what you just said, and what you said here, this is what I think about that. I rarely ever get comments like that. Yeah, I do, but I rarely ever get them. And even when I'm on like dating sites, like Grinder, for example, and I tell the guys about my YouTube videos, I don't think there's any guy out there who actually watches my YouTube videos and like creeps in on all of them and listens to everything I say and gathers information about me and keeps track of everything like that. Yeah, that'd be super awesome if someone was actually cool enough, thoughtful enough, and nice enough to do that. But they don't. Most of it just flies right over their head. And I don't think anyone's planning on murdering me at all, or any of that, so. And I don't think people are following me. I mean, I'm very cautious with a lot of stuff I do, like reasonably cautious, but I don't think anyone's following me or creeping on me or anything. And she said that that was another sign that I don't have schizophrenia, because another symptom of people with schizophrenia is they believe that people are out to get them and that people are plotting things against them or planning evil stuff for them, and they're always paranoid about that. And she said that it's very clear that I do not believe that at all. So that's another sign that I do not have schizophrenia. She also asked me if I believe that I have supernatural powers, or am I able to control people or read their minds, or if I have like supernatural powers in order to do like weird stuff and everything. And I told her, I wish I had supernatural powers, because that would honestly be really cool if I did, but I definitely don't believe I do, honestly. And I'm definitely not able to control people or read people's minds at all. And she says that that's another sign that I don't have schizophrenia, because some people with schizophrenia believe that they have supernatural powers. Yeah, I do believe in some supernatural stuff, but I'm not 100% sure if it's true. Like, I'd like to believe it's true, but I'm not 100% sure. And she said that confirms it even more, because a person with schizophrenia would believe that it's 100% true. And getting back to the whole being paranoid thing and thinking that people are planning on murdering me and thinking that people are stalking me, I also told her about the time when I went to Alabama with the person I met on the Satan worshipping web form. And again, just clarifying this for you guys, I do not worship Satan at all, but I was just on the Satan worshipping website because I wanted to find people who were outcasts like myself, That's the only reason why I signed up for the Satan worshipping website. It's not because I worship Satan or do anything like that or into anything like that. And that's how I met the one guy who was going to leave me out in the forest in North Carolina if I became homeless, because I was typing on there that if I became homeless that I didn't want to die on the streets in Wisconsin, and I didn't want to be on the streets when I became homeless because they do messed up stuff to homeless people when they're out on the streets. I wanted to be someplace far away, and he told me that he would take me someplace far away to North Carolina to a forest that no one ever visits. And he said that he would just leave me out there by myself and I'd be alone and at peace when I finally pass away and die, because I would have no way of getting my insulin if I became homeless. And I know that sounds really morbid and really gloomy, but that's what was going on back then. And that's where the psychic told me that I'd be killed by the tornado out in the forest in North Carolina. But I actually did meet that guy, the Satan worshiper guy, because I used to talk with him on the phone a lot in December of 2016 and so on since then. Like, we stopped talking to each other after I told him that my adoptive parents were sending me down to Florida to live with their relatives. And after I told him about that, we lost touch with each other very soon after. But in April of 2017, I got into an argument with my adoptive parents, and I was really pissed off and really angry. And he called me on the phone one day, and I told him what was going on, because we became pretty close. Like, we weren't in love with each other or anything, but we were very close. And he asked me if I wanted to go on a drive with him down to Alabama, and he said that he would come up to Wisconsin and pick me up and take me to Alabama with him. And he came to this park and he picked me up from a baseball field, and we went on a road trip down to Alabama. And I did an episode of Joe Winko Talk about that. I'll have a link to it in the pinned comments. Road trip down Interstate 65 with a Satan worshiper I met online. When I told my psychiatrist about that, and when I showed her some clips from that video, she said that that was another thing that caught her attention right away. Because people with paranoid schizophrenia, they always believe that people are out to kill them. And she asked me, "Did you think this guy was going to murder you at all during that trip?" And I told her, "Well, I figured it might be possible, but I didn't think it was 100%. I didn't think he was planning anything evil to do on this trip. I honestly thought that he just felt really sorry for me because I was going through a rough time back then, and he wanted to get away with someone, and that's why I went with him. I didn't think he was going to do anything evil. Like, I definitely figured that it was possible, but I didn't really care at all." And she said that that was another thing that stood out to her, because she told me that a person with paranoid schizophrenia, they believe that people are plotting something against them and that someone is going to murder them, or that someone's planning on doing really bad things to them. She told me that a person with paranoid schizophrenia is not going to get in the car with someone and drive down a long interstate, drive down 4 or 5 states on an interstate with someone, and be perfectly calm the whole entire time. They're going to be freaked out and worried because they think they're going to die or something. But she said that the fact that I made it all the way down to Alabama with them and then all the way back up to Wisconsin, and I was calm the whole entire time. Like, he did kind of freak out towards the end. Like, he didn't freak out, but he got mad about one thing that I showed him. She said the fact that I was able to remain with them and remain calm the whole entire time, all the way down to Alabama, that was a sign that I did not have schizophrenia, because otherwise I would have thought that he was planning something evil or that he was going to murder me or something. Yeah, I definitely believed that it was possible, but I didn't 100% think that that was going to happen, and it didn't happen. And in all honesty, I'm really glad it didn't happen. And she said the same thing about the stranger who took me to Arkansas, too. She said that I wasn't worried about the stranger I met on Craigslist who replied to my ad saying that I wanted to go to Arkansas, And she said that she knew that I didn't have schizophrenia because of that. Because a person with schizophrenia is not going to go online looking for people to take them on road trips to Arkansas, Alabama, North and South Carolina, or Ohio. She said a person with schizophrenia is not going to do that unless they believe something evil is following them and that they have to escape somewhere and never can't come back. But she said clearly that that wasn't the reason why I wanted to get away. However, she did point out that that is a sign of one mental condition, and she said that that was a sign of depression, that I didn't care enough to get into the car with a stranger and go on a road trip all the way down to Alabama, almost on the other side of the country, like, because I was living in Wisconsin, and that's in the north, and Alabama's in the south, so technically it is on the other side of the country. She said that that was a sign of depression, really, because I was aware of how dangerous that situation was. I was aware of how dangerous it was to get in the car with a stranger and go to Alabama or go to Arkansas, and I was aware of the bad things that could happen, but I just didn't care at all. And she said that that was one thing that concerned her, because that was definitely a sign of depression, and that's what she pointed out. And in all honesty, I believe her on that too. It definitely is a sign of depression. But I wasn't depressed when I was in Alabama. I was actually really happy to be in Alabama. And I was even really happy to be in Arkansas. Even though when you saw in those videos when I was in Arkansas, I had a really sad look on my face and everything. But that was really just acting because of what almost happened to me in Arkansas. Because I was honestly really excited to go to Arkansas, seriously. And I really want to go back to Arkansas one day. And I hope I do. Because it'd be awesome. Really. But she was thoughtful enough to notice that, and she was thoughtful enough to point that out. And you know, I honestly think that all psychiatrists should be this smart. Because a lot of people in the mental health field, like, they may seem smart and everything, but a lot of them are really stupid. I never had a psychiatrist this smart before who actually paid attention to the stuff going on inside my autism mind and everything like that. But the thing is, she's the only psychiatrist who I ever mentioned my YouTube stuff to. I mentioned it to a couple other psychiatrists back when I was a little kid, but at that time, I never really dove into detail about stuff going on inside my mind when I used to post videos on YouTube back when I was 14 and 15. I never really did videos of me explaining stuff I'm fascinated by. It was really just the stuff I make with The Sims. But even then, those videos, they even tell a lot of stuff about me and what goes on in my mind and the stuff I fantasize about and the stuff that I imagine. All of my videos on YouTube, you learn something about me from every single one of them. Every single one of them, you learn something about me from. And that's the whole point of all my YouTube videos. And the point of my Sims 2 scary videos too, to show how I imagine stuff and to show how I would react in this situation and how I think people would react. Yeah, some of it's a bit inaccurate on how I think people would react, because I know sometimes it would be different, but that's honestly the thing. Like, for example, in Carolina Maniacs, when I made myself a 13-year-old boy living in Charlotte, North Carolina, who believed that two crazy serial killers were on the loose, and that two crazy serial killers were after me, and there really were after me in that movie, Carolina Maniacs, but no one believed me at all. It kind of reflects how my life really is, how no one really listens to what I say, and how everything about me flies right over someone's head. And that was kind of my way of venting it. It was kind of therapeutic for me because it was vent art. But it does upset me when people always ask me for a new Sims 2 video when they don't even see that message that I was trying to convey in my movie Carolina Maniacs. And another example, like my Sims 2 horror movie, A Nightmare Encounter 2 Island of Illusion, like during the beginning scene when my adoptive mom sends me away to Palm Springs to live with Claire Redfield. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Just like my adoptive parents sending me down to Florida to live with their relatives. See how that connects? That's what my adoptive parents done before. Like when they sent me to the Dominican Republic to live with my biological uncle. I was really happy about that, but they always try to get me out of the way. Like when they sent me to Canada back in 2006 to live with their parents, who would be my grandparents if they were biologically related to me. That's what I was trying to show in A Nightmare Encounter 2, Island of Illusion, but no one ever noticed that at all. But you guys notice it now. I plan on doing more episodes of Joe Winko Talk explaining some of that stuff, really. To close this all off, she mentioned another thing to me. Now, we also talked about my sleep paralysis and what was going on then. I did a whole episode of Joe Winko Talk about this, and I'll have the link to that in the pinned comment also. It was so long ago when I done that. But back in 2006, 2007, 2011, 2012, and 2016 and 2017, it was worse back in 06, 07, 11, and 12, my sleep paralysis occurrences, when I started having sleep paralysis and visions of my biological father. What sleep paralysis is when you wake up, but you're not fully awake. Your body is still paralyzed and everything, and I explain this more in my episode of Joe Winko Talk, because that's what happens to you when you sleep, and your mind is still dreaming, and I was having basically nightmares. I call them visions, but they're really nightmares about my biological father, and I always would see him. He would be standing over me, and he'd be wearing a orange jumpsuit, and he'd always look really angry and really evil, and it would terrify me back when I was a little kid. That was another major reason why some of the psychiatrists who I saw back in Wisconsin during my earlier days thought that I might have schizophrenia. But this psychiatrist who I've been seeing in Florida, she said that that's completely unrelated to schizophrenia. She said that a person who has sleep paralysis, that does not mean that they have schizophrenia, because sleep paralysis can basically happen to everyone. It's just like having a nightmare, and it's natural, really. There are things that make a person more susceptible to sleep paralysis, though. But I was asking her, what about my biological father? Like, because this was happening in 2006, and I didn't know anything about my biological father back then. It wasn't until my adoptive parents explained to me everything that happened, and it wasn't until my biological uncle confirmed all of it, of what happened with my biological parents and everything. She said that what she believes is that it was very possible that I do remember exactly what happened back when I was an infant, because my biological father was a really terrible person. He killed my twin brother and tried killing me when we were infants by drowning us in a sink. And we were only a couple months old when that happened. But she said that part of that was locked in my mind. I might not consciously remember it, but she thinks that my subconscious mind kept it with me this whole entire time and is still keeping it with me. And she thinks that my subconscious mind, the thing with subconscious minds, that's the psychiatrists believe that there's two parts of a person's mind: the conscious, normal, waking mind that functions every day, and the subconscious mind, which isn't very active very much. But she thinks my subconscious mind held on to that. And the reason why I was seeing him, and the reason why I knew, like in my gut, that he was my biological father when I was having these sleep paralysis nightmares, is because that's how I remembered my biological father. And the reason why he was wearing the orange jumpsuit is because I figured that he probably went to jail for trying to do that, because what he did was so horrible. That's why I saw him wearing an orange jumpsuit. But then another thing that she explained was when my sleep paralysis occurrences started happening again in 2011 and 2012, she said that the reason why that probably was going on and why they were coming back worse than before was because I was really worried about my biological uncle because he was in a coma during that time. And when he died, I was even more stressed out and even more sad about that. And she said that's probably what made it worse because I was in despair during that time and I felt really alone. And when you're alone, that's when your mind starts acting up, and that's when bad things happen with your mind when you're alone. And that's what she told me. But the sleep paralysis occurrences, they started getting scarier because I started seeing my biological father and he was looking rotten and dead and decomposed and everything. When my sleep paralysis first started happening, I would just have visions of my biological father when I was having a sleep paralysis occurrence, and he just looked really evil and really scary. But then in 2011 and 2012, he started looking dead and decomposed, and it was terrifying, really. It was literally a nightmare. And I told her about how I finally learned about what my biological father did and how I knew what he did and how I knew that he died in prison because he was killed in prison in Wisconsin in January of 1998 because he was killed by other inmates in prison in 1998. And she told me that another reason why those sleep paralysis nightmares got even worse is because I officially learned from my adoptive parents that my biological father was dead. That's why, after they told me that, I started seeing him decomposed and scary looking and evil looking. So that made perfect sense to me because I honestly never even thought that, really. I never made that connection at all, and I just thought it was strange how I didn't figure that out. But now it makes perfect sense why that was going on. And she asked me, did I really believe that that was honestly the soul of my biological father coming back to haunt me? Or does she think that it was just a figment of my imagination of how I remembered my biological father, and that if it was just nightmares from that? And I told her, well, it's possible that it could have been the true soul of my biological father coming back to haunt me, but I'm not 100% sure. And she told me it's another sign that I don't have schizophrenia because she said that if I did have schizophrenia, it's very likely that I definitely would have believed that that was the ghost of my biological father coming back to haunt me, or some evil entity following me around taking the form of that. She said that I would have been 100% sure of that and that there would have been no convincing me otherwise. But the thing is, I don't, because sleep paralysis is actually a normal occurrence and it does happen to people. I felt really relieved to finally have someone who actually paid attention to what was going on and everything. She literally is the best psychiatrist who I ever came across, honestly, and I told her thank you. And I'm really grateful to have her as a psychiatrist, and I'm really grateful to have her helping me because this is literally the first time that I ever felt like someone in the mental health field was actually helping me. And I really appreciated that. And she definitely did help me. I'm really glad she cleared that up for me and confirmed that I really don't have schizophrenia at all. Because I honestly was starting to think that I don't. But it all made sense that when you're alone and your mind looks for something to focus on, I have a very powerful imagination, a very active mind, and it all makes sense now. And she explained everything. And I really wish that all psychiatrists were like that. But then again, maybe if I would have showed them my YouTube videos and or would have came up with a way to explain things to them more thoroughly without the YouTube videos, they probably could have came up with those conclusions. But clearly they didn't. But this one did, and I really appreciate that. And I'm really glad that I finally have someone good on my side, and I really appreciate that, honestly. since I was talking about my biological father, there's more stuff I want to make clear to you guys, and here's another fact about my biological father. He was born in October of 1976, and he was killed in prison in January 1998. That's the time my biological father was alive for, and that's the amount of time he lived for. Me, on the other hand, I was born on December 5th, 1995, and it's May 2019 right now, and guess what? I'm still alive. I never harmed anyone in my entire life. I never killed anyone in my entire life, and I never did any of the fucked up evil stuff that he's ever done. And I'm honestly proud about that. I'm not like stuck up, and I don't like put myself above other people, honestly. But I have a lot of pride in myself, and I'm proud of myself, honestly, and how far I come, and I'm proud of what I've been through. That's why I talk about so much rough stuff in my life. I'm proud that I managed to make it through it and everything. I always run into judgmental people all the time, especially down here in Florida, who always try to bring me down and who always bash on me. Like, for example, and this is just an example, guys on Grindr, and it doesn't really matter what they say. Like, it still gets on my nerves from time to time, but it doesn't really matter. And that's not the only dating app I use, in case you're all wondering. Guys on Grindr always try to bring me down because I don't have a car at all, and because I'm really poor and don't have money at all, and also because I don't have my own place or anything like that. And there's also a lot of other things they judge me on. I get judgmental comments on YouTube too, but it doesn't affect me very much. It's really the people on dating sites that's what kind of pisses me off, when they bash me on dating sites and when they try to bring me down. But that's kind of because I'm such a defensive person over myself and everything, and because of my autism, I tend to take things personally and literally sometimes. But that's another thing I need to work through. But I still have a lot of pride in myself, and I'm still proud of myself. And in all honesty, that's one thing that no one is ever going to be able to take away from me. Honestly. Because another thing I always think about is my biological father. He was a really messed up and fucked up person, and if there is a hell, he's definitely burning in it right now. And I don't want to say that there's something he done right, because there isn't anything he done right. He was a horrible, messed up person. There's one use that he has to me. There's one use that he has to me. Whenever someone tries to bring me down, I always think of him. And I always think of how much of a fucked up, evil person he was, and how he's burning in hell right now. And I always think, I will never be as bad as he was. And I will never be as bad as him. And that's not the only thing that helps me think highly of myself, in lack of better terms of explaining that. But it is a major thing. It's not the only thing, but it is a major thing. And that's one thing I'm proud of myself about. And yeah, that's basically it for this episode of Joe Winko Talk. So let me know what you guys think of this episode. I know it was a lot of stuff to talk about, and I know it was really long. But let me know. So I hope you guys all found this interesting. And I hope everyone watching this video, I hope all of you guys are proud of yourselves too, because everyone has something that makes them unique. And that's one thing that you all should be proud of, because I think everyone should feel that way about themselves. Everyone should. So that's basically it for this episode of Joe Winko Talk. Please let me know what you guys thought, and don't forget to like, Don't forget to comment. Don't forget to subscribe. And don't forget to like me on Facebook and follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Tumblr. So that's it. Peace out, people.